Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Clare Champion Sports Chat podcast. It's the first of two podcasts coming your way this week, and on this one we are talking solely about the GAA. Of course, announcement last Friday that we now have our roadmap in place. We'll be looking at club championships at the end of July. They have an 11-week window until the county teams get back on October 11th, with county training starting back on September 14th. We'll be looking at various aspects of that with our guests across the show, and we start with 2013 All-Ireland winner with Clare, Colin Ryan. He gave his thoughts on what he has seen over the last couple of weeks.
Kind of said this from the very start, the medical opinions count for everything at this point. Everybody has their opinion about what's going to happen and how it's going to happen and all that, but I think every player that's fit and well, and listen, of course there's going to be situations, and I fully respect that, where people might be living in a house where there's a vulnerable person or something like that, but I think life has to, I won't say go on, but, there has to be kind of a bit of light at the end of the tunnel, I think, and the GAA have supplied that, the government have supplied that, to go ahead to go with that, and we're happy to comply with all the guidelines and just get out there and do a small bit of hurling again, at some stage maybe, and obviously everybody just wants to, I think, get back playing. I think you realise how much you miss it maybe when it's taken away.
Yeah, did you find the last couple of months strange in particular? Because I suppose we would have had quite a busy club month in April, and August is only around the corner for championships, so it would have been kind of ramping up around now.
Yeah, definitely. I think personally, we had just got a new manager. Like, listen, we had our second child last year. I think kind of the whole family bubble catches up with you, but this kind of gave us a bit of time to kind of get things done ourselves at home, and get out and get active. Both of us were off. We were able to get out with the kids and stuff like that. And I think, depending on people's situations, I think it just gave them a bit of mental headspace to go do their own thing, I think, for a while, and kind of get back, enjoying it and stuff like that. But I think it gave everybody a break as well. And listen, I think everybody was holding their breath, hoping that there'd be championship this year. I think it would have been a big loss, if it might have been harder if it was put off till next year. But I think now that we can see that some light at the end of the tunnel, hopefully everything going to plan in the next couple of weeks with numbers staying down, I think everybody's been mad looking forward to it.
Yeah, I suppose it's looking like a knockout championship, better than nothing though.
Yeah, well, listen, I suppose that's up to the Clare County Board. I think, when you look at it, it only takes 6 weekends to run the hurling championship, in its current format. I know the football is slightly different at present, but I think if they get a bit creative, I think, you don't need to have it completely knockout, so maybe they might be able to, apply a second chance to some teams. Like they've said that it's up to every county board to decide what format they want to run. I think if they could give a second chance to teams, it would be the ideal scenario, I think, because I think we have the time frame to be able to comply with that.
Yeah, do you think between September 14th and October 11th we're going to be having this old club versus county debate?
Listen, that's the big one, I suppose, I know that every county manager is probably going to be thinking now, I have to get started again and get ahead of the curve, and stuff like that. But I think the GAA is going to really have to set down a marker there and kind of go, listen, this is a unique year. I think, you can be doing things, but, you're going to have to, if you're with your club, you're with your club. Yes, if you're knocked out, I suppose there is the chance there to go back and train with the county maybe when they get up and running. But I think the GAA have really set the stall out to say that there's no inter-county training till the 14th of September, and, hopefully everybody will comply with that, especially in the year that we've just had. I think there has to be a bit of understanding from everybody.
Yeah, and just finally, I guess you were involved in one of those great nights under lights in Croke Park for an All-Ireland, and I suppose all things being equal, you could see floodlights turn on in Croke Park for an All-Ireland final again this year, maybe around Christmas. Do you think this could be the year that the GAA get to try this open format and maybe see if this is something that could be feasible going forward?
Oh, sure. Listen, I think it'll be amazing if it takes a pandemic to change it. It might be one positive that's taken out of it, but listen, we've been stuck in a rut, I think, for a while now. With the formats of the championship. Yes, the Munster Championship is great, but Ulster Football Championship is probably another really, really competitive one and stuff like that. But across the board, do the provincial championships fit their purpose? It's hard to know. I think, looking at going forward, if you were able to run an All-Ireland series, in groups of 4, maybe, where there were open draws and you could come out and get into the All-Ireland series or something like that, then you'd have less weekends. You would allow space in the calendar for the club championship maybe to run at a different time of year, just like what's happening at present. This year, listen, obviously you'd be hoping that it wouldn't be as tight maybe if they were to put it into the calendar again, but it'll be weird if it takes the pandemic to do it, but it could work out to the advantage of the GAA authorities, I think, in looking at alternative scenarios.
It's Clare and Newmarket star Colin Ryan there. Well, off the field as well, there are a lot of considerations, I think it's fair to say, in terms of all these COVID-19 protocols. It's going to affect backroom teams, it's going to affect stadium staff as much as it is certainly on squads and players. To get the views of what it might mean off the field and along the sideline in particular, we spoke with Fecal native Lauren Guilfoyle. She is a physiotherapist with the Tipperary minor hurlers and senior footballers, along with a whole host of club teams as well. She's been breaking down just what it means.
There's so much to be considered. I think there's like a 15-page document that needs a bit of dissecting, and I suppose you're seeing people at the moment giving out that we can't open up our GAA pitches on Monday, but I think if any of those people were to look at this 15-page document, they'd understand exactly why. There's so much that has to, I suppose, go into preparation over the next 3 weeks to make GAA facilities somewhat safe, I suppose, and bring them in line with government guidelines. So yeah, there's so much to consider now over the next while, and a lot of planning to take place.
Yeah, I know that over the weekend on social media you broke down kind of the main points from a physio perspective. Maybe just take us through, I suppose, some of the big ones that you will see as maybe your main considerations over the coming months.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of different elements to it, I suppose, and I think the GAA document on Friday really only kind of covered pitch-side physio from a physio perspective, I suppose. There's a lot of things that I need to kind of iron out over the next couple of weeks when it comes to actually seeing players and treating injuries off the pitch. That's something that just isn't covered in this document itself, and I suppose that's something for the ISCP, which is the Irish Society of Chartered Physios, to consider. But I suppose when it comes to this 15-page document, like from a physio perspective, we already mentioned it once really, and that's where we have to wear masks pitch side. There's no clarity there if that has to be a surgical mask. But again, going back to the ISCP regulations, that seems to be the case. There's no dressing rooms permitted to be opened, and that's where a huge amount of our work would take place. So that's something that has to be considered. I know that if a player was to be brought into some sort of medical facility that needs to a medical room, I suppose, that needs to be disinfected completely after use. There's also mention of trappings to take place at home, and my first thought when I saw that was that's going to cause more injuries than fix any. So I suppose, where do we do strapping if we need to do strapping? Because with the age group that I work with in Tipperary, they're all 15 and 16 years of age, and that just isn't at all feasible. They aren't getting strappings long enough to understand how to actually apply them. And I suppose there's a lot of different things, like mixing of water bottles. That doesn't completely come under my remit, but at the same time I do carry water with me, so trying to distinguish between which player has touched which bottle. Team meetings to be held in outside or online, and again you're looking at kind of, I suppose, different underage contact obviously isn't allowed, so that's another kind of speed bump, I suppose, to jump over. There's so much from so many different angles. I'm still getting my head around it.
Yeah, it's an awful lot to consider. Like, one thing that just we mentioned, the masks, I suppose they've been recommended, but I mean, is there a specific reason why the likes of yourselves would have to wear a mask, and that hasn't been mentioned for players, or is there any thoughts on that?
I would assume that is because we would be the only member of the backroom team that technically would need to have close personal contact with the player. I do know, obviously, you see it from time to time, management might pull a hand around the player or whatever. For words of encouragement, and I suppose that's probably not deemed as essential anymore. Whereas if a player was to go down with an ankle injury or with a knee injury, I suppose we would need to get somewhat up close and personal with the player to figure out if they're able to continue. The other side of that then is, if a player has to be brought off the pitch, are we able to link arms and bring them off the pitch, or do we have to go and get a stretcher? And like a lot of clubs don't have stretchers. There's a lot. It's quite overwhelming actually, and the next couple of weeks are going to be just trying to, I suppose, chat with physios that I know personally, but also maybe kind of on a club basis or on a county basis, getting together with the rest of the medical staff, let's say in Tipperary, and trying to figure out how we're actually going to do this appropriately and cost effectively as well. I suppose it's going to be a huge cost to different counties trying to bring in all these new facilities in terms of and kicking them out as well, so disinfectant and disposable different surfaces, let's say. So we're going to have to get plinth covers, we're going to have to get masks, surgical masks, we're going to have to get bibs, we're going to have to get, oh God, it's overwhelming even considering it now, and kind of having to change that between each player, and the recommendations that we actually leave 15 minutes between seeing different patients. So from a logistical point of view, that's going to be another mountain in itself.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess from a practical sense as well, like we've had probably the longest idle period for players that we've seen maybe ever, and I suppose when it comes back then it's probably going to be pretty helter-skelter. So can you foresee a situation whereby that injuries are going to be perhaps more of a danger than ever?
Oh, absolutely. So for the last 12 weeks, we've had a lot of short distance and middle distance runners emerge from the GAA, and that just isn't conducive to the demands of GAA multi-directional sport. So a lot of guys and girls have been running 5 and 10Ks, which are straight line running distances, and I suppose GAA just isn't that, and our body will have adapted to that sort of running over the last couple of weeks, and then to suddenly go back into training in 3 weeks' time where it's all short interval work and change direction movements, it's a completely different type of stimulus to the body. And I know as well, like Dad's been here trying to educate himself how to go back training in a way that minimises injury risk, but everyone's going to be chomping at the bit. Everyone's going to want to get out and go hurling 5 times a week when they are able to, and that definitely is a danger when it comes to looking at training load. So like realistically we shouldn't be increasing training load by definitely more than 20% week on week, but that's going to skyrocket in the first week back, and it's going to be through no one's fault, I suppose. Everyone just wants to get back into what they've missed over the past 12 weeks. But I'd be lying if I didn't say I was having some nightmares over what might happen in the next couple of weeks. And I think between the first week back training and the first competitive period, it is only about 6 weeks, so it is going to be quite tight. And then I think is there 11 days between contact sessions starting and matches starting, and that's going to be another risky period in itself as well, because at that point it'll have been about 4 months since players have actually engaged in contact training and contact play. So again, it's like there's a lot to consider, and I do hope over the past couple of weeks that management and coaches have taken, let's say, the GAA webinars on board and probably have kind of hopefully upskilled in these areas, because it would be foolish of me to just expect different club coaches and club managers to have that level of kind of understanding and awareness of these different injury prevention strategies and mechanisms. But hopefully now some of us have maybe taken that on board, and we'll kind of, I suppose, try to balance that out with our desire to kind of get back out and get hurling again.
That's Feical's Lauren Guilfoyle there. Time now to hear from former Clare senior football selector and 2019 championship winning manager with St. Joseph's Milltown, David O'Brien. He's been giving his thoughts from a football perspective.
Yeah, I think everyone has kind of just more or less celebrated over the last couple of days at the prospect of something that everyone thought was gone for the year actually being back on the agenda. So I don't think there's been too much thought put into the whole how it's going to actually happen, or what will it be. Will it be knockout? Will it be small groups? What will it be? But I think everyone's just delighted right now as to they're going to be playing. I think the next push is going to be, we'll just let everyone back into the pitches. That's all they're roaring for now, as their players are. But I think they're just delighted now to have kind of got something that it's this kind of light. Every day seems to be something more positive coming, so it's all positive at the minute, so hopefully Keith continues in that vein.
Yeah, club before county, was that something you'd agree with?
My jury's out on it. I'd love to know if it gets to the latter stage of the championship and or the club championship, and the county team are up and running, they're playing in a couple of weeks, what access club managers will have to players, or even what pressure is going to come on players to do whatever. For me personally, I'd nearly have went with a county first and let the club have full access to everyone afterwards, because I just think that for the first couple of weeks it'll be grand, but when it gets to the real business into the club championship, you could see players being put under pressure that's not of their making.
Yeah, I suppose that's one thing people have looked at, the 3 dates, we'll say the 31st of July, September 14th and October 11th, and obviously at the latter end there's going to be an overlap from the starting of county teams training, the clubs finishing, and the championship of county starting.
Well, more than likely you're going to have probably eight club players and sets of club players aren't going to be available for county for their first week back. Then you'll probably be from 2 weeks on, it'll be down to 4, and then it'll be down to 2. But it's just, that would be grand in any normal year, but if the county are playing in 2 weeks' time, it's very hard. They're going to play in a challenge match, they're going to play in something, and maybe 6 or 7 of their panel could be tied up. Or it's interesting how it's going to work.
Yeah, that's, I suppose, formats and all that. Would it be a case of knockout being the preferred option, or would you like to see some backdoor element?
Personally, I think after players being off all year, not having had a club or league, or won't get to play challenge matches realistically or anything like that, you would hate to think that they'd be gone after one bad performance, or one decision, or a player getting injured or sent off or anything like that your year would be over in that. And I think there should be some sort of a backdoor, whether it's groups of 3. I know in Clare club football in Clare there's 13 teams. What happened there, I don't know. But it's an ideal scenario, you'd have an even number, whether it was 12 or 16 or 8 or whatever it is. But it's you'd love to see teams at least get 2 games. If it might mean taking away the quarterfinals and going straight to semi-finals, but everyone would have had 2 games played, I don't really know, to be honest with you. But you would hate to think that a team would get the go-ahead to go back training now, then all of a sudden only get 11 days from when the pitches are, when you're allowed to have contact training to when the club championship could start, and you'd be thinking that you might have 3 or 4 proper training sessions and then your year's over.
Yeah, county level, I guess they're talking of potentially an open draw. John Horan kind of calling the provincials this monster that needs to be dealt with. Like, could this be the year where they get the chance to maybe try that out, and everybody understands why?
It's the best chance they're ever going to get, and there will be enough weeks probably in the county, because they can run through December if they have to. There's nothing coming after the county at the minute, so they can have 4, we'll say 8 groups of 4, and give everyone 3 games, and then just go straight to a quarter final, and you haven't lost an awful lot of rounds, rather than and maybe not have the provinces this year, or else let them be at the start of next year, scrap your McGrath Cups and your Waterford Crystals, and let this year's provincial championships be next January or February before the league starts. I don't really know. I think the GA, especially money wise and all, to be able to give grants and everything next year, they need the All-Ireland Championship up and running, so the best chance they will have is for maybe having a look at how they can move it forward now, and maybe have your groups or whatever it is, and give everyone a crack at it. I know the provincial councils won't be happy, but look, they're probably dying in their feet over the last couple of years, especially in the football. Maybe not like you can't classify the Munster Hurling or Leinster Hurling Championships as something that's dying in their feet, or the Ulster, but I know there's something seriously wrong in the Munster Championship anyway, in football and Leinster.
Yeah, and I guess there could be maybe the way going forward, like, and as you mentioned, that option is there. I suppose to maybe Camogie are doing it, for example, whereby your provincial championship is still there, but it's not really connected to your All-Ireland series, so maybe that could be a road they could go down.
Oh, well, definitely. Like they have the time. It's going to be very hard to do the club thing, because with hurling and football crossover with dual pairs that you don't have at inter-county level, and also there has to be finish date because the county's coming after it, whereas the county have a blank canvas. They just know when they're starting. They can dictate when they finish, and they have a real chance now of setting up something. They have kind of a free pass this year. If it doesn't work, go back to what we had before, but this is the best chance they're ever going to get to try something radical and see if it works, then let people vote on it next year in Congress.
Yeah, I guess it's going to be a really unique one, and perhaps even having an All-Ireland final in December, like, it's probably something to look forward to. And as you mentioned at the start, like, people celebrating that it's back, and people already starting to think that, Jesus, the long winter nights now, and if things are low and whatever, but like having that to look forward to in itself is a bright light.
Look, people don't care when it's on, whether it's on the height of summer or winter. If we think we're going to get to go to a GA match or watch a GA match, or for players and management not be involved in a GA match, you play at any time of the year in any condition. So it's not going to be a deterrent. If a team make the All-Ireland final, there's nobody going to go, I'm not travelling because it might be cold and wet. They're just going to go. And that's the way it's going to be. So, look, a couple of weeks ago we thought we wouldn't have it. Now it's been handed back to us. So, look, everyone's just going to have to make do and get on with it this year now.
And just finally there, you mentioned the format of our championship here in Clare in terms of football. You kind of feel it could do with a little bit of tweaking?
Well, I thought it worked. It was very good for. I thought the way it was up to last year was good. The groups of three work as well. I suppose the big thing is that it can be. It can be tough when if you play the first two rounds and you could be waiting a month to play a game. No one wants to left a month to play a game, so it is hard. I suppose the 16 is ideal, but the problem is you definitely don't have 16 teams that can play senior or compete at senior anyway. So you had to go to 12. It's probably more even, but it just means that it can be drawn out probably longer than it needs to be. Maybe you could scrap the quarterfinals, and we were talking to somebody the other day where you'd have whatever teams win the first round would play round 3, and that means every game would mean something, and whoever tops the group goes straight into semi-final. I still think that's something they could do this year. It still means that 3 rounds will have your county semi-finals, so you don't have 5 rounds to run the whole thing. Even a knockout, it's going to take at least that anyway, so it's something they'll have to look at.
That's the thoughts there of David O'Brien, Milltown native of course, and former Clare senior football selector, on what he thinks may happen over the coming weeks and months. We'll have more updates on that. We have a chat with Joe Cooney, the Clare GA chairman, in this week's paper. Pick it up to hear what he had to say. And we have another podcast coming your way tomorrow. That's Friday evening. In that, we'll be hearing from Clare Camogie coach Conor Dolan. We'll be hearing from the Clare Motorsport Club and Jerry O'Brien. Paul Talty, the Hinch native, talks to us about Swim Ireland getting back in the pool this week. And we hear from the Innisman, that's part of Stephen Kenny's Republic of Ireland backroom team. All that coming your way tomorrow evening. It's all in the newspaper as well. Do pick it up, and I'll talk to you then.